Good evening. Welcome to the Lompoc City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 19th, 2017, and it is 6:30 p.m. My name is Dale Van Dusen, and I have the honor of being the mayor for the day. And this is my opportunity to thank everybody in the city that provided their time and attention to explain their jobs to me. It was an amazing experience, and thank you. This program, the funds for this program, directly benefit a local nonprofit organization, but the value of it is only possible through the generous donation of time of the people who work for the city, and they do that in appreciation of the contributions that these local nonprofits make to the city. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Vega?
Here.
Councilmember Starbuck?
Present.
Councilmember Osborne?
Here.
Mayor for a day, Dale Van Dusen? Mayor Pro Tem James Mosby?
Present.
Mayor Bob Lingle?
Here.
Mr. City Attorney, do you have a report from the closed session?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. There were 2 items discussed and no reportable action was taken.
Thank you. Please rise, remove your hats, and join Pastor Joey Robinson for an invocation.
Lord God, thank you so much for this opportunity for us to gather here today. We realize that democracy isn't a privilege afforded to all people throughout the world, and we don't take it for granted, Lord. Thank you for these leaders, and your word tells us that they are your chosen, Lord, that you've put into them your selection. So we just ask that your wisdom be upon them, you lead and guide them in all things. We ask for your continued blessings on our community in the city of Lompoc, and that you just be with us and guide us, and let us be a city that gives you honor, Lord. And we ask all this in the name of your Son. Amen.
Thank you. Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now I will turn the meeting over to Mayor Lingle.
Kind of hoping you'd keep this for a little bit longer. So, it was a real pleasure being with Dale today. We took him around. He toured City Hall, sat in on a staff meeting, toured some of the facilities, and I think he learned quite a bit about what it takes to get the water to your tap when you get up in the morning, what it takes to get the electricity to your light switch when you turn it on. A lot of things happening in the background. So, hopefully you enjoyed your day?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So I'd like to present this plaque to you. It's from the City of Lompoc. It's presented to Dale Van Dusen, Mayor for a Day, September 19th, 2017, for his generous donation to the Lompoc YMCA. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you.
Any last comments?
No.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay. Yeah, as Mr. Van Dusen pointed out, one of the reasons I chose to do something like this is we all know we've got a very, very generous city here. Our nonprofits do an amazing job for our citizens, for our youth, for our community. So this is just our way of paying them back, allowing us to put something on an auction item that community can bid on and hopefully get a little extra money for the different nonprofits. So it's been a pleasure, and Mayor, thanks for my job back. Okay, let's see. Police Chief Pat Walsh will introduce new police personnel.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a great day. I always love this. So I think it's really important that the community knows who works for them. And so today we'll be introducing some dispatchers, some jailers, new police officer, and a new promoted corporal. We'll actually be doing a pinning for the corporal. So when I say your name, if you could stand up so everybody knows who you are, and I'll say your bio, and we'll just go that way. So we're going to start with dispatcher Shelby Traylor. So Shelby came to the Lompoc Police Department after a 10-year career in the dental industry. She's always had a strong desire to help her community and feels a career in law enforcement is a good fit. Shelby shares her life with her husband Jay and their two children Levi and Avery. And Shelby is looking forward to becoming a part of the Lompoc Police Department family. So, and have a long career, and I hope you do. And then dispatcher Amanda Sheffield. Amanda was born and raised in Santa Maria. She is the first person in her family to work in law enforcement and looks forward to working for the Lompoc Police Department for years to come. Jailer Emery Knotts. Emery, oh, hey, you're back there? All right, great. Emery was born and raised in Santa Maria. It's kind of funny. People are coming from Santa Maria. It's usually the other way around. He is an 8th generation Californian of the Central Coast, with his ancestors arriving in 1769. Emery attended St. Joseph High School in Orcutt and worked in his family restaurant as a youngster. After graduating high school, Emery worked as a security guard at the Chumash Casino and Marion Hospital before being hired at Lompoc Police Department. Emery obtained experience working security, which led to his desire to pursue a career in law enforcement and carry on the tradition of his great-grandfather, who began in 1921 at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And Emery, I didn't introduce, is anybody here from the family, or you're working tonight, aren't you? Okay. All right, jailer Martin Willis. Martin was born in Sacramento, California, the youngest of 6 children. He became passionate about law enforcement in high school, where he participated in the Sheriff's Explorer program. After high school, Martin moved to Rockland, California to pursue 2 Associates of Arts degree in Sociology and Social and Behavioral Sciences. That's why you're always asking us questions. Martin moved to Long Beach, California, obtained his bachelor's degree in Sociology. Martin is passionate about education and intends to attend graduate school part-time next year to complete his master's degree. Martin has lived in Lompoc since 2016 to be near his 2 sisters. Martin enjoys going to church on Sundays and relaxing at the beach on his days off. Officer Joshua Hernandez. Where is he? Oh, you're standing right in front of me. There you are. Josh was born and raised in Santa Maria. Again, Santa Maria. God, I wish Santa Maria was listening to this tonight. By his mother, Cynthia, and dad, Alvy. He has 2 sisters, Melissa and Antoinette, and a brother, Alvy Jr. Josh went to Pine Grove Elementary, Lakeview Junior High, and Rigetti High School. And where he attended college. Sorry, I wrote some notes on here. I can't read my notes. He attended college and received a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Josh started working at the Lompoc Police Department as a jailer in October of 2013. He was hired as a police trainee and graduated from Allen Hancock College Police Academy in June of 2017, where he received Academic Achievement Award and finished second overall in his class academically. During the academy, Josh married the woman of his dreams. He wrote that. Those aren't my notes. Anasha, I'm killing the name, aren't I? Anise? Thank you. Sorry. Who is supportive of his career in law enforcement, but not very impressed with the chief's. So those are the introductions, and then we have one more. Corporal Brian Guerra, Officer Guerra is being sworn in as corporal. Brian Guerra, where are you at there? So do you want to bring your family up? Or you want me to read this bio first? It's about 4 pages long.
You can read it first.
Okay, I'll read the bio first and then we'll have your family come up. So Brian Guerra was born and raised in Lompoc. He grew up working in the family produce farming business. Brian graduated from Lompoc High School in 1997. After working construction, he decided to go another route. Brian began his law enforcement career working at the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department as a correctional officer. I'm seeing a theme here. We stole somebody from Santa Barbara, too. He was a jail training officer and a member of the Special Operations Enforcement Team. After 5 years, Brian decided he wanted to help serve and protect the community he grew up in. Brian went on a ride-along with his longtime friend of the family, Officer John Bailey. Shortly thereafter, Brian was hired as a police officer with the Lompoc Police Department. In 2009, Brian was selected to the position of gang detective in the department's Gang and Narcotics Enforcement Team. He worked as a gang detective for 4 years with his good friend, Corporal Sergio Arias. I thought you guys were brothers. During those 4 years, he investigated and assisted in numerous complex investigations, including 2 wiretap investigations. He has also testified as a gang expert in numerous trials in court in the Santa Barbara court system. After going back to patrol for 2 years, Brian was selected for the position of detective in the Department of Investigation Division. There he investigated several major cases and helped recover numerous items of stolen property. He was able to return those valuables back to the citizens of Lompoc. Brian has also been a field training officer, a firearms instructor, and has been a member of the SWAT team since 2009. In his off time, Brian enjoys spending time with his family, his wife, Shireen, daughter, Mackenzie, and son, Carter. All right. So just while they're coming up here, what's about to happen is Brian's going to get sworn in as a corporal and pinned by a family member. And then for everybody that we spoke about today, Mark Powell's here. So after, we're going to take a recess after the fire chief is sworn in. If we could just kind of get back to the green wall back there, we'll take pictures with your family, because how often are you all together like this, and it's a good day. And then for the community and the council, you can see the quality that we're hiring. And I know I complain that we're short a lot, but we are taking great steps to pick good quality people for our town, and you can see these are quality individuals. So with that, clerk.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Brian Guerra,
I, Brian Gore,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will support the laws and policies
that I will support the laws and policies
of the City of Lompoc,
of the City of Lompoc,
that I take this obligation freely
and that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
and responsibilities
and responsibilities
of the office of Police Corporal
of the office of Police Corporal
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Cute. Congratulations. Okay, we took care of that as well. Okay, I took care of that. I guess we're going to take a brief break. Oh, fire chief. Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. Where is our fire chief? Okay. Yeah. What we had? Okay, so who's going to do this? Okay.
Thank you. Chief, would you like to join me up here, please? I'd like to introduce our new fire chief, effective yesterday, Fire Chief Jerry Curris. We do this a little bit differently with our executive leadership. I would like to say that Chief Curris comes to us from a long history with Santa Barbara County, where he most recently served as a battalion chief and had 36 years with Santa Barbara County in the service, and his service in fire service goes even longer than that. And we are just thrilled to have you as part of our community, and would like you to share a little with the community, not, fill in the gaps about your family and background, but also about your vision for the department going forward, if you will. Not to put you on the spot or anything, but all right, please.
Well, all my family's here, and I'm married for 41 years, and I have 3 children. My son and my 2 daughters are here, and my son-in-law, who's also a firefighter for Santa Barbara County Fire now, and also we have my daughter Katie and my daughter Laura, and 3 grandchildren. So they're all here, a lot of friends. But my wife's trying to give me some coaching here. But no, I worked in Santa Barbara County for 36 years. Hopefully I'm coming to bring that, all that knowledge that I've gotten from working from the county that I can bring to Lompoc and mentor our new and expiring fire officers and firefighters and help them to just get over that little plateau so one day they can take my spot. I really just want to say thank you to the city manager, the city council, the mayor, and I just can't tell you how humble I feel and proud that I can be part of this great, great family. And let me tell you, these firefighters that I've met, the men and women are just totally awesome. They're some of the best firefighters I have ever met. And that's really what pulled me out of retirement, was coming to help these guys. I think they got a great group, and I think we're going to just have a really, really good future together. Thank you. I have one more person I want to thank. I have one more person I want to thank, and that's my beautiful wife for all her love and support.
I just want to take a couple of notes. One is just how highly regarded the chief is in the fire service, and I just heard that consistently as we were doing our background work and our process. I want to thank the members of the department who helped out in the process, and I particularly want to thank Battalion Chief Mark Bray, who filled in our interim and just did an awesome job, willing to pick up the baton while we were in between chiefs. So I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you very much, Mark. I don't see where that's the problem. You were like right in front of me. You're hiding in my chair. And so at this time, I think we're ready. If we could have the family come up and join the chief and step over here, and we're going to swear you in.
Is that everyone? Okay. Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Gerald P. Kuras, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I will support the laws and policies of the City of Lompoc, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. You can sign.
Sorry, paperwork.
Have you sign your oath too, sir? And have your wife pin you.
Okay.
Actually, it's not on the agenda, but I have a proclamation that I need to read. So let's hold off on the break just for a few minutes. Is someone here for the proclamation for its National Recovery Month? Ah, okay. Sorry about that, it wasn't on the agenda. Okay, so it's a proclamation from the City of Lompoc. It is for National Recovery Month. Whereas National Recovery Month theme for 2017 is Join the Voices for Recovery, Strengthen Families and Communities. This year, we will encourage communities across the nation to include people and families in recovery and hear inspired stories on how they have been welcomed and contributed to their communities. And whereas National Recovery Month is a national observation held every September to educate Americans and substance abuse treatment for the mental health services and enable those with mental and/or substance use disorders to live a healthy and rewarding life. And whereas Recovery Month celebrates the gains made by those in recovery, just as we celebrate health and improvements made by those who are managing other health conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, asthma, and heart disease. The observance reinforces the positive message and that behavior and health is essential to overall health prevention works. Treatment is effective and people can and do recover. And whereas now in its 27th year, Recovery Month highlights the achievements of individuals who have reclaimed their lives in long-term recovery and honors the treatment and recovery services providers who make recovery possible. And whereas through Recovery Month, a Coast Valley Treatment Center's Recovery Day in the park event, people become more aware and able to recognize the signs of mental and/or substance use disorders, which can lead more people into the needed treatment. Managing the effects and those conditions can help people achieve healthy lifestyles, both physically and emotionally. Now, therefore, I, Bob Lingle, Mayor, City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2017 as National Recovery Month.
Chuck Madsen, Coast Valley Treatment Centers, and Luis Gonzalez, Coast Valley Treatment Centers. Mayor and City Council members, thank you once again for recognizing our event, Recovery Day in the Park, this Saturday, in support of National Recovery Month and those in our community, the City of Lompoc, that suffer with substance abuse, mental health, and other disorders. I'm inviting, we have a full house tonight, everybody to come out and support those in our community suffering with substance abuse and mental health disorders by joining our event at Recovery Day in the Park. This is a one-day free event with a free barbecue for everyone in attendance. Last year we were proud to say we served 800 hamburgers, and it's totally free. Kids events, face painting, everything's there. So once again, City of Lompoc, thank you for recognizing our event. And
Chuck, which park?
Ryan Park.
Ryan Park, okay.
The park should be full, so
Okay.
come out and enjoy the event. Thank you again, Mayor.
Okay, now we're going to take about a 15-minute break. If we can get everyone back here right around 7:15. Okay, if I can get the council to return to the dais. Okay, if I can get everyone to take their seats. And if I didn't remind you earlier, if I could remind everyone to silence your cell phones, pagers, whatever you may have, any electronic devices. We're going to move on to the city manager's report.
Nothing to report, Your Honor, thank you.
Great report. Okay, public comment. Public comment on the consent calendar. This is dropping you to speak to us for up to 3 minutes on anything on the consent calendar. Have one back. Go ahead.
Good evening, council members. I'm here to sing the same old song, and I hope that you'll listen to the new rendition with interest. The city of Lompoc has a cash flow issue. And when I last gave you this handout, I didn't have every last number on it. Today I do. Between 2013 and 2015, the June 30th cash flow of the general fund dropped by $2.4 million. Increased by $2.4 million. Between 2015 and 2017, it decreased by $7.1 million. Now, we all know that our money doesn't come in on the same day every year, and we all know that things change. So one of the things that I always sought to do when I looked at city financials was look at trends. And I have before you the trends from 2011 through 2017, and you will notice that some things are very different. I didn't run it all off, but I also have in my hand a copy of the city financial document from June of 2016, which indicated there was a decrease that expenses exceeded revenues by about $1.2 million at the same time that the treasurer's report shows we dropped $3.8 million. Clearly, there's some other items that aren't readily apparent. But now you're in a negative cash position, and you have been for almost a year. So if we are in a negative cash position and we're still paying our bills, which you're going to do tonight, we have to be moving money from some other account. The choices are the emergency fund account that the council administers, but that requires council approval to do it, or some other account within the city, and there's nothing wrong with borrowing that money, but the law requires you as a council to take an action. And you'll recall I've spoken before about the fact that this is the road Guadalupe went down one step at a time that led to their serious financial problems. So I hope this evening you'll, as a group, make a decision to get a forensic audit. And if you've ever looked at what our other audit does, it clearly doesn't answer these kinds of questions. I took time to read it again this evening before I came here. You are the guardians of the people's money. Please act responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment on the consent. We're going to bring it back to the council. The consent calendar consists of things that are generally considered routine and will be passed with one motion and a second unless a council member chooses to pull an item. Does any council member wish to pull an item? Okay, I just have one question on item number 4. Chief Walsh here? Okay. This is an agreement we're going to be approving with the cities of Santa Maria, Guadalupe, and the county of Santa Barbara for them to use our jail instead of transporting their prisoners down to Santa Barbara. It takes probably about 2 hours out of the officer's day. I'm fully in agreement with this, but I just want to talk a little bit about Guadalupe because we're not charging the city of Guadalupe. And it's explained in the staff report to us why we're not doing it. But I just want the chief to explain to the public why we're not charging Guadalupe.
Mayor, Captain Deanna Clement is in charge of the jail, and she's done all the research and wrote the staff report, so I'll let her answer.
Okay, thank you.
The reason behind the not charging Guadalupe is that they anticipate booking around 50 inmates a year, and arrestees a year. It would be minimally impacting our jail. They also volunteer a lot of their officers' hours where they come without being asked to events such as our parades. They bring police officers over here and they do not charge us for that. So they've done our parades, they've helped out on special events where they bring officers and also their explorers.
Okay. Thank you, Captain. So, any other questions from the council? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
We need a motion. Okay, I need a motion.
I'll give you a motion.
Okay, we've got a motion and...
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Staff presentations.
Give you a minute to hand those out. Council members, Mayor, members of the audience, staff. Back in 2013, the city had to do some rate adjustments for water and wastewater because of their financial strength or lack of strength at that point in time. One of the major reasons for taking that action back in 2013 was to ensure that our bond covenants, that our bond covenants would be met. And we have bond covenants because we have existing debt on both water and wastewater dating back to 1998, 2005, and 2007. And one of the opportunities that was not afforded to us in 2013 was the ability to take advantage of significantly reduced interest rates that have occurred over the last basically 3 decades. The interest that we have on these 3 bonds is higher than what we could get today. So because of the rate increases that were put onto the ratepayers, those 2 utilities are now healthy enough that we can go back out to the market and refinance their outstanding debt to save the utilities some money. Primarily, this is an interest rate opportunity. Rates are still lower than they have been in decades. They're still lower than they were when we issued the debt in 2007, 2005, and 1998. There's another opportunity in that fact that beginning in 1992, when we had the first issue that was done for water and wastewater as a joint bond, the 2 utilities, even though they're act independently and are financially independent from each other, the bond was actually a single bond for the 2 utilities. This is an opportunity where we can separate that both on the bond side to match up with what's already separated on the financial side. So there's two opportunities here. The primary one is interest savings. And I'm just going to go through a little bit of the history of what we've been doing. Interest rates have been sliding for quite a while. The finance department, because of the various workloads we've been working on this actually since probably about this time last year, trying to get the documents together, the team together, and we're much, much closer now than we were back in 2016. Here's a list of what our current outstanding obligations are. They're split between water and wastewater. The 05 and 07 bonds were issued primarily to assist with the wastewater treatment plant renovations and the new plant specifications required by the state. We have another loan through the state that's the primary loan for the wastewater treatment plant. These bonds were issued to provide for the local match that was required as part of that loan. All 3 of these bonds were issued originally through the Lompoc Public Financing Authority. That is a joint powers agency that was created by the city with the city's redevelopment agency back in 1992. Redevelopment law provides for bonded indebtedness to facilitate several things, but it also facilitated having a joint action activity that would make it easier for us to issue debt in those time frames. The Lompoc Redevelopment Agency was disbanded by the state in 2011. It's not needed. The authority is not needed to do this refinancing opportunity because the state bond law allows for the city itself to issue refinancing debt. It doesn't necessarily allow it to issue new debt, but we're not issuing new debt. We're just replacing the existing debt we have. even though the authority is the legal holder of the debt, the obligation to pay for the debt is on the two utilities. So each one of them has been paying their debt service, principal interest every single year, at the March and September timeframes that they're needed. In the audit of financials, the amounts that are paid is shown, and we continue to provide continuing disclosures to our to EMMA, which is the National Archive of all continuing disclosures, to make sure that we're meeting our debt covenants. So why are we proposing this refinancing? Bonds are a mechanism similar to home mortgages, but they have a lot more demands on them, primarily because municipal bonds are tax exempt for people that hold the instruments. That's a tax exempt investment for them, which raises a bar of how much time and effort and disclosure we have to be able to issue the bonds. The bond market is very peculiar in that they require rating agencies to take a look at our financials and see how well they think we can sustain our payments over time. All that takes some work, and it takes a team of professionals that do this all the time that we don't have in the city. So the team that we have put together for this, we've had for the 1998, 2005, and 2007 bonds. We were using the same group of people, of firms, to do that work. They also were part of our team to do the 2004 and 2010 refinancing. So they're very, very familiar with the city, familiar with what our existing bonds are, and have assisted us numerous times since 2007 to make sure that our filing requirements, our covenants are met, so that we are in a place where we can reissue debt at the point in time when it became advantageous, which is now. At the same time, we knew that we would be needing debt or a financing mechanism to provide for the rest of the transit maintenance facility. We have a significant amount of money that we've accumulated from federal transit and local transit funding. We're going to leverage what we get now, what we will be getting in the future, to pay that off in a fairly short amount of time. But in order to utilize the funds we have on hand, it'll need some bridge financing for possibly 10 to 15 years. And I'm mentioning this because we kind of did it as a package when we were doing the refinancing of these three debts, and we're looking to them to help us secure the debt for the transit center later on. One thing that has happened since the authority last issued debt in 2010, several SEC changes have happened, regulatory changes have happened on the federal and state level. So there's a whole nother level and layer of regulatory requirements that we have to follow, one of which is a debt issuance or debt management policy that we will be bringing to you as part of the package that we bring later on in October for possible adoption to do the refinancing. That policy prescribes how much debt seems to be reasonable for the general fund issue, what kind of levels are sustainable, just things to keep us from overexposing any part of our agency from undue risk. So the proposed bonds that we're talking about are going to consolidate everything that we have in the 98, 05, and 07 bonds into one bond issue that's called the 2017 A and B bonds. Water will issue about 11.6 to pay off its existing bonds, and wastewater will issue about $17.1 million of new debt to pay off the old bonds. One very important thing to keep in mind is that all these bonds that we have issued are 30-year bonds. So the 1998 bond is almost 20 years old now. So it's only got about 10 more years to go. And it's actually got a component of it where we refinance some debt from 1992. We're not going to do just a refinance and refinance it for another 30 years. we're refinancing it with the existing maturities that are on the existing debt so that we're not just expanding the number of years where we're paying interest. We're just taking advantage of the interest rate. So we'll have some bonds that will be maturing in 2022, just a few years down the road. The 2007 bonds were issued with a maturity of 2037. That it will still be out there. Nothing will go beyond 2037 on this bond refinancing. I try to equate this a little bit with regular home loans just to give you an idea. There's no real price lock for a bond. You can't say the rate's really good right now, we're going to lock it in for 60 days. That just doesn't happen. So the sooner we get this done, the better, because there's no guarantee that next week something will happen where rates might go up quite a bit. We expect to see a significant amount of savings on a going forward basis, both on the debt payments and the overall savings based on more or less what you might call an APR for a home. As I mentioned before, both the existing debt and the proposed replacement debt are tax exempt. So we require a bond counsel to issue an opinion that says these are qualified tax exempt bonds. That provides some security to the people that are buying them so they can put it on their taxes and not have that taxable. The rates that I have shown up here, the 3.37 anticipated APR, that compares with what the rates are, which is about 4.5% right now on the existing debt, average out over the three of them. So that's a 1.2% decrease, which is, when you're talking about 3%, 4%, that's a pretty big drop. So it's not guaranteed. This 3.37 is not guaranteed, but it's also on a conservative level right now. We're not expecting to get the best price, but this is what we think we can get right now without much trouble. Obviously, there's cost savings from having a reduction in the interest rate. I'll show that in a second. This opportunity to segregate the bonds themselves between the two utilities provides another layer of transparency for the utilities. So we have all the supporting documents to show how much the wastewater treatment plant costs versus some of the water projects that were done. We have those percentages right now, but this will allow us to have the separation both on the financials and on the bond side, as I mentioned before. I talked earlier about the interest rate savings. The rule of thumb in bond financing is that you want to consider any kind of refinancing if you can get at least a 3% net present value savings. The projection right now is that this refinancing would generate about 3 times that, between 8 and 9%. So even if rates go up a little bit, we should still be within that level to get the 3% savings. Sorry, this is a little bit small, but this shows what the interest savings will be over the next 3 budget cycles based on that conservative estimate of the 3.37 rate. For water, the interest savings will be about $310,000 in the next budget cycle, about $350,000 in the second budget cycle, 1921, and a little bit less than that, $275,000 in 21-23. For the whole entire life of the remaining maturities, water should see about a $1.8 million reduction in interest costs. Wastewater, even though it's got a higher debt service level, has it's got a longer term, I guess. The savings in the first 3 cycles is a little bit less than water, but their overall savings will be right around $2 million. This would make both the utilities a little bit more healthy and would reduce the chances that we would have to come back for any kind of rate increase to sustain our debt covenants. Finally, this is kind of a calendar of what's happened and what will happen. As I mentioned, we've been working on and off on the preliminary offering statements that would be for each of the 2 bond issues. and Alshire Wander, who provides us attorney services. They also provide bond counsel, and they're working on the indentures that are necessary and all the other legal documents that will be needed to be part of the package that goes out to be looked at by investors. Our financial advisors, K&N Public Finance, who has been with us for since 1998, and I've been working with them since 2000. They did an underwriting RFP for us and had 3 vendors submit proposals and provided their recommendation that we go with the one that will be presented to you in one of the next couple of council meetings. The week of September 25th, we'll go through the second drafts of all the documents to make sure that all the things that are necessary are in them. We also have to make sure that we get approval from the state to do this refinancing because of the loan that's on the wastewater plant. So that's ongoing as well. The target right now is not next council meeting. We're hoping to get next council meeting, but we put it off until the 17th to bring back all the documentation, the resolution, staff report for potential action by the council. If that occurs, the financial advisors are setting up a rating agency presentation so the bonds can get a rating, which will help identify how much or how little the interest rates would be. The higher the rating, the lower the interest rate. So the better our ratings, the better interest rate we'll probably get on the market. Because we've been doing the rate increases, they may have been stressful for everybody who's involved. This is the place where it will be paying off to help us reduce some of our interest rates. Then once that's done, during the month of November, the financing, the underwriter will get the bonds issued, sold. The old bonds will get funded so they can get repaid during the month of November. And by the end of November, the whole transaction should be over with. And from then on, the city will be realizing savings on an ongoing basis until 2037. One thing I'd like to mention is that the 2004 and 2010 issues of the authority that were for the redevelopment agency, they also have the opportunity to save some interest based on the rates that were out there. And actually the rates that were in place in 2010, because of the threat of possible dissolution by the state, the interest rates were actually a little bit higher than they probably would have been in a regular market. So there's a fairly good potential that we can save some money there. The difficulty I have with those is that as just one of the tax entities that are involved in the former redevelopment agency, we only get a sliver of that. So it's on our radar to do, but there's some hurdles we have to go across to get that done because we're not the master of our domain to be able to do that. We have to have the oversight committee approve it, and we have to have the Department of Finance approve it, which you would think they would approve getting more money to the tax entities, but it's just another step we'd have to take to get there. So backing up to the beginning of the presentation, I wanted to provide this information to you because we've been kind of working in the background trying to get to the point where it can be brought to you, and I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up that it will be coming your way. On a budget cycle, saving $500,000 over a 2-year budget cycle will be significant, especially since it will continue to occur at least until 2022 when the 1998 bonds, some of them roll off. The interest savings over time will be what I mentioned, roughly about $4 million between the two. So it's a significant opportunity that we are been trying to get to. The first step of that was the implementation of the rates back in 2013. So that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. The participants in the bond process will likely be here. a couple of them will be here on the 17th to answer questions, and depending on what you ask me now, they might be able to come down on the 3rd as well.
So, Mr. Wilkie, just to kind of summarize it in my mind, we are not taking on any additional debt, and by paying it off, we're not paying it off, we're not extending it, we're paying off the same amount of time, but overall we'll be saving approximately $3 million over the length of these bonds.
About 3.8, yeah.
Okay.
And I try to make that clear that the existing maturities, they're not changing. Okay. The bonds will be sized and the bond repayments, it's not like an amortizing loan where you just pay interest rate on the principal and pay it off. There's tranches within the bond. Some of them are a term, some of them are 5-year bonds, some are 3-year bonds. So they're all paid off. They're set up so you're paying off an even amount every single year, and that amount drops over time, and the interest rate, the commensurate interest amount, pays off over time. So somebody might get an investment and they buy a $5,000 bond. It may mature in 2018. So once it's matured, it's gone, and it's no longer on our book. So somebody can go out there and buy the 20-year bonds that we have, or they can buy the 15-year bonds. They're all just part of the whole entire issue. So you're absolutely right. We're not extending the maturity. We're not adding any new debt. We're just paying off the existing and taking advantage of the interest rate environment that we have. So.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Starbuck.
Yeah. Mr. Wilkie, being that these are enterprise funds, this makes good business sense. The question is, what do we do with the savings here? We've done this before, but we've never gone beyond what? Being that it's an enterprise fund, I really see basically 4 options. We would use the savings to A, pay off the bond early, apply it at the end to reduce utility rates, put it in the reserves, or apply it to an infrastructure project. Where is this savings going to be applied in this utility? When it comes back, we'll never know up here.
Well, one of the things that's going to happen, at least for the current 2-year budget cycle, is our interest costs will be lower than we budgeted. That savings will, by default, go in and add to the reserves that the utilities have. So one thing to keep in mind is in 2013, when we were struggling through the rate setting authority, one of the things that was recommended was to set a reserve level of 25% for operations. Water is almost there, but not quite. Wastewater is, because of the conservation efforts that the community has made, that reduced the amount of incoming revenues because the base charges went from based on 8 units to 7 units. So it's still got a little ways to go. So this will help wastewater get to its reserve level a little bit faster. And the other thing is it would be able to help fund the reserve and replacement program for both the utilities so that we can start doing some of the underground pipe replacements. But to answer your question more directly, beginning in the 21-23 cycle, that savings will be budgeted, and then we can take a look at that, and you have the opportunity as the board that looks at the policies and say, we want to take that $300,000 savings and put it into the R&R replacement fund, or do this or do that. One thing that we probably can't do until we do another rate setting study for both the utilities is we probably couldn't just unilaterally just say we're going to reduce rates for this class or that class. We'd have to do a study to say, let's take that savings into account and make sure that the class structure stays so that nobody's being subsidized by somebody else. But that could be an opportunity too to show what the rates might be. We might be able to change the rate so we can still fund the R&R reserve, but it may not have to be at the level that was first proposed in 2013.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Wilkin. Okay, we're moving on now to oral communication. This is your opportunity to speak to us for up to 3 minutes on any item that could come before the council.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and fellow citizens. My name is Tim Smith. I am a citizen of Lompoc. I just want to speak briefly this evening. The past several months have been very difficult for our city government, for city council, as well as for the city staff. Certainly, deliberations over the budget have led to a lot of concerns, and there's been a lot of debate. A lot of it has been healthy debate, but there's also been some harsh words spoken and and I would just say that as anyone who's spent any time at all in management or in a leadership position, some point in time in your career, you say something that you wish you really hadn't ever said. And that's happened, I think, a couple of times here. If it hasn't happened to you yet, hang around, it will. This is just the way it is. It's part of the territory. Things get excited, but we need to bring the tone down a bit now. I think it's very clear that the council itself needs to work on communication amongst its members, and likewise, the council and the city staff need to work to communicate much better than they have during this cycle. There needs to be open communication. It needs to be transparent communication. We need to see this for the public. And the reason that we've had the accusations, we've had recriminations, we've had threats to terminate, we've had all kinds of things going on. It's time to take that tone down. There's a lot of work yet to be done. The budget that was considered is a budget that treads water. It's not what we're going to need for the future. We need a lot more revenue. We need a lot more revenue by 2018 in order to fix the things that we need to fix in the city. That means time is precious. And I've got 1 minute and 14 seconds left. Time is very precious, and what we do with that time as a city council, city staff, the commissions, the citizens, all of us, we all need to spend that time wisely to try and build our city back to where it needs to be and actually have a vision for the future, which we really don't have. We don't know what we want to be when we grow up yet. That's very clear. So we need to work together on these things. We don't have time for these arguments. We don't have time for a lot of the language that's going on. We have to get back to work. We have to get back to business. And I think that's essential if we're going to succeed as a city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so I didn't give my little speech ahead of time. You know, we let every speaker speak their mind, whether it's favorable or not favorable, but just sort of keep your applause down because we want every speaker to feel comfortable speaking. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, members of our community. My name is Anthony Hudley, and I'm the president of the Lompoc Professional Firefighters Local 1906. We would like to congratulate and welcome Fire Chief Kurtz to the Lompoc Fire Department family. We're looking forward to the next chapter with him as our fire chief, and we know that he'll guide us through a new chapter of excellence within our organization. We'd like to thank Battalion Chief Mark Bray for accepting the acting fire chief position and for guiding our organization in the interim while we did not have a fire chief. And in addition, we'd like to thank City Manager Patrick Weimiller for his continued collaborative and progressive leadership by promoting Chief Bray to acting fire chief in the interim and hiring Chief Kurtz. We have faith in our elected officials, city manager, and new fire chief that together they will continue to empower our organization so that we can provide the level of service that our community needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Deb Andrews, Mission Hills area of Lompoc, and again, budget deliberations. While some on this dais have the backbone and integrity to fight for citizen interests, ask questions, hold staff accountable, others and their supporters label, demean, and infer personal feelings are sovereign. This graph of the city of Lincoln, and I made them available outside on the table for the public, illustrates how citizens fare when elected officials follow a script. It's self-explanatory, but the LES at the bottom stands for Lincoln Electric Service City Dividend. LES does not have the authority to levy a tax, so they call it a dividend. It appears on all electric bills, and the mayor raises it at will. The bonded indebtedness on the right, increase 118% in 10 years, is bonding that citizens vote on. The small square at the top is certificates of participation. They have increased 2,886% in 15 years, and that's because they're not subject to a vote of the people. That's through state law. They're increased at will. As government expands, citizens and public employees increasingly become fearful as their rights erode. The Lincoln homeless population expands, a housing shortage results in higher prices and higher property taxes. Some of these things are real similar. Watch video online as Lincoln police saw open the safe in a private home and confiscate the life savings of a small business owner, $225,000. Police had no search warrant. The couple were never charged with a crime. Nebraska ranks number 5 in the nation for civil asset forfeiture. If a citizen looks too long at a Lincoln public employee or another citizen in a public building, they can be removed for committing extensive staring. 3 staring violations, and you can be banned from all public buildings for 1 year. It's how you get rid of your critics. These are national things that are happening. Lincoln parking tickets are $10. Unpaid after a week, the fine increases to $25. Unpaid after 15 days, the city can tow your car. A Lincoln kindergartner was sexually assaulted by a stranger in the school bathroom during the school day. The court ruled the school and district were not responsible for the child's safety. Lincoln Public Schools now operates 3 behavior schools to teach compliance and peer monitoring. A Lincoln City employee was found crushed under a large city mower. According to state law, only the city Human Resources Department could conduct the investigation.
I need you to wrap it up.
The details are online, a man, a mower, and a mystery. 2 Lincoln fire and police captains filed federal lawsuits against the department saying they faced retaliation for reporting harassment of new recruits and female firefighters. On the 230th anniversary of our Constitution, we the people thank you for asking questions and demanding answers.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, council members, members of Lompoc. My name is Shondell Malcolm. I'm the founder of Planting a Seed. We're an outreach nonprofit organization in town that assists our homeless population. I come to you tonight because I sent forth a proposal via email to our city council members. Just through some miscommunication, I was asked to come tonight to present it to the council. So the cleanup date that's proposed is October 28, 2017. The time frame is going to be from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. The cleanup areas that we want to clean up are going to be behind Riverbend Park in that area and the 246 Robinson Bridge. As it states here, the labor is going to be done by Planting a Seed and volunteers from the community. The materials that are needed is that the city of Lompoc provides dumpsters or a roll-off, and also that the city agrees to take in the trash from the Robinson Bridge area and dispose of it properly. So the project description is that Planting a Seed and volunteers will stage 2 separate cleanup areas, the Riverbend Park, 246 Bridge, and that the cleanup will begin at 8 a.m. and at 12 p.m. The city would provide the dumpsters, the roll-offs adjacent to the areas. The volunteers will clean up any abandoned camps, and I need to make sure that that's stressed, that we are cleaning up abandoned camps. We are not going and removing anybody from the camps that they're living in. We are also not taking their property. This cleanup is going to be a coordinated effort with the residents that live in the riverbed, that they will say this is what needs to be cleaned up, and we will clean those areas. One of the reasons why I bring this forth too is because in order for us to coordinate this cleanup, we need the city's approval, so that way I can start to communicate with Caltrans and Waste Management. On the back side of the proposal, you'll see the agreement that we had last year with Caltrans, with the city of Lompoc, and with Waste Management in order to facilitate this cleanup. Last year, during this cleanup, we were able to remove 2 tons of trash from the riverbed, and so this year we are anticipating that we will either be able to clean up 2 tons or possibly more than that. So thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Malcolm, I want to thank you for your efforts, and I know you've been in contact with our city manager and possibly with the city attorney. There are certain things that we need to make sure that are happening to protect the city. So are you can you continue to work with the city manager and city attorney?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think he's addressed most of the concerns we've had. So at this point, we just wanted to make sure that that the council was open to the idea of our providing the services free of charge, because we can't waive the charges. Okay. You can. So if you're open to that, we'll bring that back on a consent item for the waiver for this particular event. But I believe the things that Mr. Malcolm has described addressed what our initial concerns were.
Okay, good, thank you. And again, I want to thank you for your efforts. Councilmember Starbuck.
Just a quick question. Are you thinking of possibly going to another area later to do this, possibly behind the Mervyn's area or somewhere in there? Or is this just to put your foot out and try and see how it works?
Actually, this is would be our 3rd year doing a cleanup. Previously in 2015, we did clean that whole area by Mervyn's. But as you stated, I recently went down there, and it's pretty dirty right now. So eventually we would like to get back down there with that group and assist them in getting it cleaned up as well.
Councilman Mosby?
Yeah, to the city manager, who owns this property that he's cleaning up on?
Well, there's probably a small portion. If you start looking at the riverbed, 10% or so is within the city, and the balance of that's within the county.
It's in the county, but I mean, who owns it? Because I understand those parcels. The riverbed.
We do have some that we acquired as a result of the land transactions that occurred, contemplating the state route coming through there. At other points, I'm not sure we have recorded landowners, and they might still be with the state.
I know the city bought a lot. They bought about 300 acres for River Park, so a lot of that is on. But I just get so it sounds to me like most of the places where you're going to be are on city property, but some of it's in city limits, some of it's in the county, though.
Correct.
Right.
Riverbend Park is in the city limits, and the Robinson Bridge is actually Caltrans property, and that's why we need to coordinate that effort with them.
So are you going to be south of the bridge? Upstream of the bridge or downstream of the bridge?
We're going to be south of the bridge.
Okay. Some of that, I think there's a piece of property the city owns there as well.
We have a sliver, and the balance of that is either still held by the state or unrecorded.
And I guess Caltrans is. I'm just trying to see who all's we're doing. I thank you for your efforts in cleaning up city property. That's huge. I just hope Caltrans is agreeable as well with you. Are they embracing your endeavors?
Yes, last year they were extremely helpful in facilitating this whole thing, and they said this year they'd be willing to do the same, but the requirement from them is that the city accepts the trash that we removed from the riverbed.
All right, well, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so just so we give clear direction to city staff, anyone on the council oppose the city moving forward with this? Okay, so you've got, City Attorney, is that okay?
This will be coming back to you because you can't take an action tonight.
Okay, good, okay, so but you can bring it back to us now, okay, good.
Yeah, absolutely, it's applaudable. Thank you so much, okay, for trying to help clean up our community. I back you 100% here with the city waiving the fees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next, please.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city administrator and staff, and fellow citizens. My name is Linda Lee. I live at 1204 North B. And I usually watch the council meetings at home, and I've been very impressed. I have a concern as why I'm down here, but I just want to start off by saying I've been very impressed by the amount of work that the council and the mayor and the city administrator and staff have done in trying to find solutions to our budget problems. And it's a lot of hard work. It's very evident that you put in a lot of personal time and hard work on these issues, and I just want to thank you all for your hard work, especially the hard questions and the detailed getting into of what seems to be minutia. I appreciate it all because I learn a lot. That being said, my concern is it seems that because the problem seems so intractable and the level of stress and frustration in dealing with these problems seems to have overwhelmed the council a little bit, and the last two meetings have been of concern to me that it's more than a level of dissension. It's almost like it's outright hostility between some members of the council and the administrator, and I think that this is not productive. And I am a grandmother of two grandsons, and so I'm no stranger to levels of high emotion and hostility breaking out. And so when that happens, one tends to say to the parties to stop and calm down on both sides. And at that point, after everyone's calmed down, we usually apologize, and then we shake hands, and then I remind my sons that they are brothers and that they are on the same team, and that because of that, they must work together to solve their problems, and that I expect them to work together to solve their problems. And even though the city council is faced with much bigger problems and it's not the same situation, I do believe that kind of the sentiments might be the same. I would like to remind council and the city administrator that we are all on the same team, and it seems that the administrator has already made his apology, and I would really appreciate it if council members could cease in attacking the city administrator. Anyway, thank you for listening to my comments, and once again, thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, ma'am.
First of all, my name's Anne Rouget, and good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm a former council member myself. I lived here since 1993 and am very active in Lompoc. But as a point of clarification, these are my own comments. We're not solicited by anyone. It's just is what has been going on and how I personally feel about it. I have comments for 3 of you council members. Now is the time, as several people, the 2 other people already said, to stop the politicking and posturing. Your behavior has embarrassed and appalled the total community, and we are now the laughingstock of the county. Your disrespect, disregard, and lack of support for our city staff, and especially our city manager, is what is leading many of us to speak tonight in favor and support of all these highly trained, loyal, and capable people. You saw the public safety departments here. There couldn't be any more better trained than the police and fire personnel. Our city staff is the most experienced, knowledgeable, and hardworking in this county. To continue attacking and insulting the best city manager we have had in a very long time is unacceptable to me and totally out of line. Many of our previous council members are appalled at your behavior, and we ask you to cease and desist this deplorable display of outright antagonism towards Mr. Weimiller. During this budget hearing, he's done every little nitpicky thing you've asked of him. At your request, he's been evaluated twice, unheard of in my memory, and now you want to terminate him by a kangaroo court. He has also been accused of insubordination, as the lady ahead of me said, and he apologized in front of the council, the city, and made his apologies to Councilmember Vega. And he was left with a dead silence in the room. I was here that night. As a former council member, I'm asking you to seriously stop this childish behavior and act with the respect toward your hardworking and well-trained staff, all the staff people, and especially the city manager and our city attorney. I think you need to stop and take a look at what's happening here in this town and how people feel about it. So remember, we're all registered voters, and we're watching you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, Mayor Lingle and City Council. My name's Rosemary Holmes, longtime resident of Lompoc. And I have to say I wholeheartedly agree with Ms. Rouget. And I think all the scoldings some of you contentious people on City Council are hearing tonight are well-deserved. Take it with grace and learn from it. And that's all I'm going to say on that subject. The other thing I want to say is I really appreciate your working on the cannabis dispensary possibility. I think it'll be a source of revenue. It also goes along with what our state has already approved. So all in all, I think it's a good move. And I'm not going to take much time. Other people will speak much better than I. But I also want to say that I've been working a little bit with the Bridge House, the emergency shelter, and Planting a Seed is an amazing organization. They come on a regular basis and feed those people, 70 or 80 people, among them many children, many disabled, mentally ill, dual diagnosed sometimes users and abusers, and they are friendly and cheerful and respectful, and I just think what they do is wonderful for the community. So thank you, Planting a Seed. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, council members and public and so forth. My name is Wally Waldow. I totally agree with Anne Roger and other speakers. To put it into another perspective, after many, many years as an employee, I believe the city manager is your only employee. After many years in Air Force, civil service, one thing you just don't do is you don't berate and criticize your employees in front of everybody else. That's just not cool. If I were that person or anybody else in that position, why would I work for such, and you can fill in the next word. I'll be polite and not put in my own 2 or 3 that I had there. But again, to do that in public is just not cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Sir.
Hi, my name is Terry Harper, and on behalf of myself and several of us citizens here tonight, council members, we want to publicly acknowledge and thank City Manager Patrick Weimiller for his leadership. We thank you for your leadership as well. We do ask, please, to consider the ways in which this is handled. We're in a public arena, And these are contentious times in our country, and Lompoc does not need to be a part of that. We are a city of flowers. It's a beautiful place to live, and we ask that you would be responsible, that you would...
Keep going.
That you would continue to look at the issues and think a leader who is willing to stand up for what's right, even in the midst of dynamics that attack a personality or a person, and move above that, move above reproach, and act responsibly on behalf of the citizens of Lompoc. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Joyce Howerton, Lompoc. Well, I came here tonight to thank you. This council has been able to do something that nobody else has done in a long time. You've been able to bring the most conservative people in Lompoc and the most liberal people in Lompoc together. You have brought some of the oldest and some of the youngest people together. They've all come together because of your outrageous behavior of starting with the motorsport project and then the longevity and the silliness of the city budget. I don't know if you read the Sun article. If you haven't, you better. People around the state are making fun of Lompoc. We're now #1. We're being made fun of all over the state because of the behavior of our city council. I really want to thank Councilwoman Osborne for her comments in the paper. And the key word is professionalism. We all come from really different backgrounds, but when you're elected to serve your community, the very least your community expects is that you behave in a professional manner. We have the luxury and the honor of having some of the most professional people there is on our staff. And we saw the best and the brightest here tonight. And so for you to fall so far short of that, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to me as a community member, and I certainly hope it's embarrassing to you. I hope that you take it to heart. The City Council has a handbook, and from the behavior I've witnessed, obviously you haven't all read it. I really encourage you to read that handbook. It talks about how you purport yourself in public. It talks about what your roles and responsibilities are. And I can tell you, reading that handbook will take a lot less energy and time than dealing with a grand jury investigation or a recall. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
City Council, residents of Lompoc. The budget process the city just went through had several undesirable repercussions. City manager declared that the city might have to resort to that which must not be named. One local business person complained that the budget struggle and the threat of that which must not be named would affect the interest rate he would be charged for long-term financing of his new building, and how the proposed tax increases would harm his ability to attract business. The process became a struggle and tempers flared. City employees became concerned about their jobs. A local newspaper columnist felt the need to jump in and attack the character of city council members whose views he disagreed with, and one council person decried a lack of professionalism on the council. All very negative consequences of that process. I see that the main cause of the failure of the process was the inadequate design of the budget document itself. The budget was an opaque presentation better suited to a budget with no unsettled issues. However, there were unsettled issues. The budget called for cuts in several popular services and the imposition of 3 new taxes. The document reflected the city manager's expectation that it was his job to create the budget for the city council to approve. This expectation conflicted with the city council's expectation that it was ultimately responsible to the voters for the budget. When the cuts in services and new taxes were not approved, the budget document failed to provide the information needed to resolve the issues, and obtaining that information became an emotional contest of wills. To avoid this from happening again, the City Council should adopt a preparation guide to be used for the next budget. City Council should direct staff to provide a draft version of this guide for the approval at least 1 year prior to the next budget approval date. That would be about 8 months down the road. The objective of the guide would be to ensure that the next budget provide answers to all relevant questions within the documents. I have some common sense suggestions. And the intent of this guide is to encourage a transparent budget containing information that will help the City Council set priorities they believe will express the will of the voters. The budget document should provide discussion of the cost drivers used in each department and how the budget was derived from these drivers. The budget document should provide comparisons with prior years' actual results rather than prior year budgeted data. Graphical presentations should include data tables or references to publicly available data tables used in their preparation.
Okay, I'll need you to wrap it up.
3 more items. Data tables should include references to publicly available source material, and where the information provided is the result of formulas applied to data, those formulas should be provided. The City Council may want to consider other ideas.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Malcolm, I think, didn't you, you only wanted public comment, though.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
My name is Brandon Bridge. Obviously, the difficulty of being up here every week, just time alone is tough. But being here and seeing a majority, or not a majority, seeing previous members of the council shaking their finger, tisk, 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 and how dare you, this is not a family, okay? This is a business, and this is a right to work state. And when an employee comes to you disingenuously saying they're not going to follow the direction of the leader or leaders, it's disheartening. It's disheartening for a young business member. I own multiple businesses. I own a home. I participate by being a patron of businesses in town. And it's really difficulty sitting back and seeing a gentleman that's supposed to be representing us not follow through on what it takes to do the difficult job. And trying to find some out about this gentleman that came from Fresno, I found he fought over a speed bump. And right there, I stopped my research and said, this gentleman is not looking at the bigger picture. He's not willing to step back, even if he thinks he's more mature than the leaders on this council directing him, to take advice, take direction, and at least follow through with real outcome, real return on data, on information, on a way to present what he feels is the best or least painful way to approach our city, whether it be not firing or firing, which I stand up here and applaud those two members for taking and pushing the boundary to at least say, no, I'm not going to bend over, I'm not going to lay flat, I'm going to be a little bit of a speed bump. And I'm going to find out that this guy can or cannot deliver on what he promised, of what we pay him for to do for us. Okay, I don't really care about them. They'll be gone tomorrow. They're going to come and go, just like the previous one sitting here. And we're all going to be stuck with our water bills, our rate increases, and sit here and shake our head at, oh, how dare you, how dare this. We are at a limited amount of time. And I look at this gentleman going, yeah, I've been here since 1981 when we moved here for the shuttle contract. I read when Hamdel said in 86 that it was going to return. Has it? No. Okay? The space world will change. Our world will change. Transit changes, taxes changes, water changes. Government will change. So thank you for at least pushing the limit. Thank you for taking a high road. Thank you for being here. But at least stand up and do your job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor and Council, I'm Molly Gerald,
registered voter in the city of Lompoc and a former city employee. I worked briefly under our city manager, Patrick Weimiller, and I would like to say that I do support him. I want to also thank Councilmember Osborne for the statement she made regarding the importance of civility and professionalism in governance. Many of us in this room went through budget hearings during the Great Recession. Hard decisions were considered and difficult decisions were made. You're facing another challenging budget cycle. Please work together and maintain the civil and professional conduct of business with respect for each other and our city manager, so that we can be proud of the way our city's governed, even in the difficult times, and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and members of our beautiful Lompoc Valley community. My name is Pamela Buchanan. I'm a registered nurse, and I've had the pleasure of living in the Lompoc Valley for 30 years now, voting and practicing nursing. And I don't know our city manager at all. I do know some of the city council, and I just want to reiterate what a lot of others have said this evening. I want to show my support for our city manager, whom I'm sure was hired because he had excellent credentials, level of expertise, and experience. And to our city council, I want to thank you all too for serving our community. I know it's a lot of hard work with little pay, and I just want to say also that when I picked up the card to come up to speak, it said, please maintain a respectful demeanor. And we do, as a community, as a person, I would ask that of you. I know in my job of being a registered nurse, especially making home health visits in our community, that there are many things that people say to me I don't agree with, and I've had to maintain a respectful demeanor. And I was taught in nursing school that whether I'm in public, out having a cup of coffee with a friend, or I'm in a patient's home or in the hospital caring for patients, that I will maintain a respectful demeanor and a level of professionalism. And thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, City Council members, City staff, I'm Pastor Jeffrey Nelson from Peace Lutheran Church. I believe very strongly in the separation of church and state. At the same time, I'm aware that many religious writings, including the Bible, include teachings that can be very beneficial to families and communities without presenting any religious bias. One of those I'd like to share with you tonight is from the Gospel of Matthew, where it says, if your brother wrongs you, go to him and tell him his fault 1-to-1. If he listens to you, you have recovered your brother. The goal of this teaching is the restoration of relationships. That's something that I think we need to work on. I'm aware, and apparently a lot of people are aware, of the conflict between the city council and the city manager. I heard Mr. Weimiller give a very heartfelt apology, and I perceive that to be an attempt to repair damaged relationships. It's easy when we let personal feelings get in the way of or affect our decisions. But I would encourage you that whenever there is conflict, and there will be conflict in the future, that your first step should be the restoration of those relationships and the reconciliation of community. Please let that be your first step. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is John Keene. I'm a resident of Lompoc and a registered voter. I just wanted to say I believe it's time for the city council to return to decorum and to show respect for one another and the citizens of Lompoc. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Richard Jacoby. I've been here before a few times. And I just wanted to say, everything's been said before, so I'm not going to repeat it. I just want to beg your moment to say that I've been on the short end of 4-to-1s and 3-to-2s several times. I've been on the long end of 3-to-2s and 5-to-nothings a few times. It's been good over time. I've been a member of 3 different organizations that are governed by 5-member boards like yours, and I think the characteristic that made them most effective was the characteristic of collegiality. I think that several speakers this evening have talked about the importance of your being able to deal with the issues and not with the people involved. And I think Joyce Howerton mentioned the handbook that the council has. Probably that you have so much reading to do when you're elected to the city council. You have about 1.5 feet of reading, and only a part of it is really something you have to read. This council, though, is very well informed, and I think it deserves our great admiration and attention. But collegiality is the secret to success. It's no secret why most bodies like this have adopted the Robert's Rules of Order or some sort of a procedural guideline that permits all members of the organization to have the possibility of expressing their point of view, and they all have different points of view. I know each one of you has a different point of view about whatever subject we would like to mention, but please consider collegiality as a really important aspect to human behavior, and it's one that's commended to you by many of the speakers tonight and by myself.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Chris Darling, longtime resident. Thank you to the board and people of Lompoc. You know, I've been sitting here listening to a lot of comments from people who must not understand what this is all about. It's a messy business, this thing called democracy. And I would remind the people here who don't want to have anybody hurt feelings, who don't want any contentious behavior, that in a democracy, sometimes it comes to that. Sometimes when questions aren't answered, when you get multiple answers to the same question, we have a right to know what's going on. And by God, I want to know what's going on. Please don't be a rubber stamp. Please question every single thing that happens, because this money that people are spending is our money. And many people in Lompoc don't have any money. And every time I see people come up here and say, "Oh, just go along. Get along, will you please?" Well, there's places like that. Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, China. You just go along with it all. But in our democracy, we have a right to question things, and I hope you continue to do it. And I want to thank those council members, Starbuck, Mosby, Vega, who have worked so hard to find out exactly why we've got people who work for us saying one thing and the same people saying something else. It's very confusing, isn't it? But in a democracy, we have the right to find out why. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and public. During the 2016 State of the City address, City Manager Patrick Weimiller had everyone raise their hands and say that we deserve and expect the best in Lompoc. Weimiller went on to talk about the need for a new $14 million fire station, which was going to increase up to $28 million through his financing plan. Mr. Weimiller was adamant enough that he was willing to put his professional reputation and his career on the line that we could afford this fire station. The Lompoc City Council has been on the hot seat, especially as of late, for perceptions that there's been bickering, that there's been warring factions, finger pointings, with contentions boiling over in August with allegations that the mayor pointed his finger at Mr. Mosby and said he wanted to shoot him in the head. Now, we've seen on the council, during the council meeting on January 3rd, Councilmember Mosby questioned why a $750,000 loan was being borrowed for demolition of the closed municipal pool when council had not discussed an approval process. Mosby called it putting the cart before the horse. Weimiller responded at one point, "No, you haven't taken a vote. I'm trying to put you into a position to be able to take that action and take that pool down because I don't think it should be up." And there lies the first problem. We have a city manager that manipulates financial needs and directs policy towards and actions without directions from the city council, a rogue administrator who is planning his vision into the framework while acting resistance to the direction from the elected policymakers. Later that same meeting during public comment, former Mayor John Lynn came up here and reminded this council that cities like San Bernardino, Vallejo, and Stockton, who took similar measures, later were forced into filing bankruptcies. Mr. Weimiller then responded during public comment and said that he at no point wanted anyone here to leave thinking that any of the proposals which he presented would ever lead Lompoc to having to file for bankruptcy. You fast forward to May 30th during a city council meeting where we have a proposal for 3 new taxes to come onto the ballot. Mr. Weimiller says that there was no other way to go around the city budget without raising millions of dollars in taxes. Yet we were supposed to afford a brand new $28 million fire station, and he couldn't even afford to pay crossing guards. There's a lot of things that are going on here, and I applaud you, Councilmember Mosby, for what you've done. I applaud you for digging in. I applaud you for finding money that has been hidden by the city manager for his own personal needs. The city council needs to send a message.
I need to wrap
You're the
up.
policymakers. You're the elected officials. You're the ones who are going on the hot seat, not Mr. Weimiller. Please take action.
Thank you, sir.
John McReynolds, 409 South A, since 1977. I was going to speak, and then I thought, no, everything's been said, but rogue administrator sends me off the edge. So, Mr. Weimiller is the first out-of-area city manager Lompoc has hired since 1968. Gene Wallers was brought in from Riverside in 1968, and since then, every city administrator has been in-house. Now, the way I see in-house, it's great, everybody knows everybody, but also you can begin to think the same way. Having somebody come in and upset the apple cart may not be a bad thing. That's why cities hire administrators, to bring in a professional perspective, and a perspective that's proven out over time throughout the whole state, which may seem unnecessary, but Carl Braun a few years ago, if you recall, was fined $6,000 for not recusing himself on a vote. That was, I forgot how many years ago that was. None of us would take a medical problem to an attorney, nor would we wing it on something involving our own health. And we wouldn't go to a doctor and then argue with the doctor. You need that input to figure out where you're going. So I think the city administrator's job is to tell us hard facts, which are going to end up in contention. I guess I agree with Chris Carling. We need that contention. But you need to have also what Dick Jacoby talked about, is a certain collegiality. Otherwise, just everything goes up. So I would agree with the pastor. You got to find a way to work together. And I don't know how you do it, but I think you guys are smart enough to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Janet Blevins, 30-year resident of Lompoc, formerly a public school teacher who found ways to get all of my students to work together. I worked together with all of my colleagues, even though we disagreed on many things during staff meetings. I also, however, have acted inappropriately. And I have been reminded by the mayor on more than one occasion that what I am doing right then, out of pure passion for what I believe is right and democratic, to mind my P's and Q's in City Hall and at City Council meetings. So that's what I try very, very hard to do. I agree with Joyce Howerton that it is absolutely embarrassing to be made a joke all around the state because of certain behaviors that are so unprofessional that they are embarrassing. You don't necessarily have to agree with everything that the city manager recommends, but to imply, as a couple of speakers have implied, that he is devious and trying to manipulate things for his own personal gain is, I mean, that would be criminal. He's not a criminal. You may disagree with him. He is a city manager. He was hired to do a job, and he's doing his job. And he's been reviewed twice and found to be doing his job. And to talk about him in a public forum and want to fire him in a public forum is just not acceptable. We are hurting for money, that's very evident. And there are some people who are currently elected and have been elected previously, who, if we listen to them and take their tack, we could save a whole lot of money by firing half of the employees in the city because they can do the job. They want to micromanage everything. That is not the role of a city council member. So I would urge you to do your jobs, do them with respect for others, even though you may differ in your opinions and your beliefs. Represent our city in a way that can make us all, if that other people have gone on, I'm going on a minute too, that can make us all proud. Please, and I support the city staff, the job they do, and our city manager, and I appreciate the service that all of you do for our city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Nicholas Gonzalez, resident of Lompoc. God, it wasn't many years ago that there was this nonprofit called LHCDC. And just about every single person here lined up, and our mayor called for a criminal investigation because the agency was going to lose a couple of million, $2, $3, $4 million. And everyone demanded a criminal investigation. Everyone demanded forensic audits. Everyone demanded that there be an investigation. The councilman in the back demanded it. But yet, when we state that we're going to have a potential bankruptcy, suddenly all of you are the bad people. I don't get it. I really don't. I do agree that we need to tone it down quite a bit. I don't believe that the questions are wrong. Maybe the manner in which the message is sent is wrong. But I believe that you have a fiduciary duty to ask the difficult questions. Just as you did, and as many of the people sitting in this room did, when it was only several $1 million that were a potential loss for the city. In fact, at one point, when I ran as a candidate, I was told that I was lesser of a candidate because of my personal financial challenges that I had when my daughter was ill. And in fact, some of the same people that are in this room today are the ones that made that same cooperative effort to discourage me. So continue. I was discouraged initially. I don't want you to be. I need people to answer and ask difficult questions. So, if anything, please work on the manner in which you interact with each other. The content of which is on the table is perfectly acceptable. You have to do it. There's lots of people that I don't see represented in this room that are fearful. I spoke over a year and a half ago. I brought up a document that was done by a major university that discussed that Lompoc was in financial problems. It said financial cities and problems, and Lompoc was on the list. I was dismissed at the meeting, and not one of you addressed that. I came back when funds for low income were used for code enforcement, and I was made fun of because I couldn't pronounce a certain person's name properly. So, it goes both ways. Ask the difficult questions, understand that it's a messy business, and try to be as kind and professional to each other as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one rise, we're going to close oral communication. And we're going to go on to item number 7, which is appointments. We have 2 appointments we want to try and make this evening. The first appointment is to the Airport Commission. We have 1 at-large position open, term ending January of 2020. We have 1 applicant. Would someone like to make a motion? Councilmember Starbuck.
I move that we accept Mr. Plow on the Airport Commission.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Okay, next we have the Youth Commission. We have several openings still there. Yes, we have. It's on the Youth Commission, though. We have still several positions open, so if there's anyone out in the public listening, we still have 3 youth positions open, and let's see, 1 non-voting. Actually, 2 non-voting. So we have actually 5 positions for youth on there. Tonight we have a position for an adult on the Youth Commission, and we have 1 applicant. And would anyone like to make a motion? Okay, I will make the motion to nominate Scott, it looks like Betschel, to the Youth Commission as an adult. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Let's vote. Okay, that passes 5-0. And as Councilmember Vega pointed out, if any of you are in the audience tonight, you want to say a few words? Okay, I guess you're not here, but congratulations anyway. Okay, we're going to move on to unfinished business. Number 8, authorization for the city attorney to amend agreement with National Demographics, Inc. Let's see, Mr. Pannoni.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is a technical item, but an important item. It's part of the steps that the city will need to take in order to pursue the possibility of having district elections. What it means is that you will be authorizing me to sign a contract with a National Demographics, Inc., which is a special consultant who assists cities and works only for cities, doesn't work for people challenging city voting processes, works only for cities to help them through the districting process. The amount of money that you will need to do that, in addition to the money that's already been spent, because as you recall, based on the potential litigation, we entered into an agreement with the same organization to give us some initial analysis, And that was we probably spent about $10,000 to date. And so an additional 47,000 plus will be needed in order to complete the process, and that process includes putting potential maps together, putting information that's sent to the public, setting up websites where the public can actually give their ideas as to what the district should look like and how they should be formed. It also includes the need for 5 public hearings that the state law requires in order for you to go through the process to make sure there's a lot of public input. So one thing that we're asking, or that I'm asking for, is for that authority to increase that contract to $58,600, which again is about $47,600 more than has already been spent. And in addition to that, I'm asking for you to set the first public hearing that would be required. You could set it on October 3rd. If you do that, the consultant won't be available. Not that he's necessary for this first public hearing, but if you want him to be here to assist with that first public hearing, then we need to set it somewhere between September 20th and October 5th. And in talking with the consultant yesterday, the 29th is a date that, or the 28th, Thursday the 28th? Thursday the 28th is the date that he actually is available. So if you wanted to have a special meeting for that first public hearing, you could do it on the 28th. And although it's a public hearing, there's no specific, the state law that requires a public hearing doesn't require any kind of special notice. So just the posting of the agenda and putting it on the website as you do for all your agendas would be sufficient. So with that, that's my...
Okay, any questions for Mr. Pannoni? Councilmember Vega.
Joe, is it absolutely necessary that the consultant needs to be here? I mean, would there be some important questions that we may ask, or would that be just...
I would say likely not for the first public hearing,
okay,
but maybe for 2 or 3 of the others, because he's going to need to give you input on what he gets from the public. So I think...
So the first one would
maybe
be...
you don't need to.
Okay, okay.
And just for the council's information, even though it's not required that I'm here either, I will be in Northern California with a meeting for Northern California Power Association, which is a city meeting, so I will not be here on the 28th. But if we want to have that meeting, it's 4 of us is more than sufficient to attend. So, okay, so any other questions for Mr. Pannoni? Okay, let's open this up to the public. Public comment, anyone? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. What's council's desire? Okay, if no one wants to make, Councilmember Vega.
If Mr. Pannoni says it's relatively an easy process to have that public hearing, I'd take his recommendation unless you guys wanted to make sure that there was a full dais up here.
And one of the things we'll do at this first meeting, public hearing, is we'll ask you to schedule the remaining 4 public hearings. Most of them will probably occur on your regular council meeting dates, but we'll see if we need to have some other dates. But there'll be, remember, after this public hearing, there'll be 4 more, 2 of which will be the introduction of the ordinance, and the last will be of the adoption of the ordinance.
So, Councilmember Vega, are you asking for the first meeting to be on the 3rd or the 28th?
I'd go with the 3rd.
Okay. Okay.
Taking Joe's recommendation that it's probably
that's fine.
Just a run through, okay?
Yeah. Okay, so do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
For both item 1 and item 2?
Yes, for both items.
Right.
Staff
contract
recommendation
Yes.
with the meeting on the 3rd, yes. Okay, any discussion? Let's vote. That passes 5-0. Thank you, sir. We'll move on to item number 9. It's under new business, adoption of resolution number 6138, parentheses 17, approving a state home program income tenant-based rental assistance program.
Do the lights go down automatically? Do the lights go down? Oh, I couldn't see it. It happens going to use the white font. Honorable Mayor, council members, staff, and public, I'm Christy Alarcon, Community Development Program Manager for the City of Lompoc. I'm presenting the State Home Program Income Funded Tenant-Based Rental Assistance Program for approval tonight. In 1992, the city received state home funds to operate a first-time home buyer down payment assistance program. Due to program changes and limited funding, the program was thereafter discontinued. The city has received loan payoffs from that program since '92, totaling $131,430. Allowable activities for home funding are very limited in comparison to other federal grant programs. Home funds can be used for homeowner rehabilitation, acquisition, or construction, and homebuyer programs. These types of programs come with numerous regulatory requirements which make implementation of such programs difficult and costly to manage. Home funds can also be used to fund affordable housing developments. But due to the amount of funding typically required for those types of developments, the small amount of home program income that we have is not really sufficient for a developer's affordable housing project at this point. The County of Santa Barbara Home Continuum funded the TBRA program here in Lompoc in fiscal year 2014 through 16. And the city assisted 137 low-income households with acquiring rental housing here in Lompoc. The home program provided $202,454 in rental security and utility deposits. Of those 137 households assisted, 50 were homeless families, 42 were disabled households, and 6 were veterans. The program was a success, not only in the number of persons that we were able to assist, but in addition, once we completely expended all of our funding, the county sent staff out to audit our program, and I'm happy to report that our program had absolutely no findings and no areas of concern. So staff continues to receive inquiries and requests for this program on a daily basis. In the recent Human Services Grant applicant interviews, many of the nonprofits that we interviewed stated that the greatest obstacle to housing for low-income families is the financial ability to pay the security deposit and the utility deposits. At this time, there are no other forms of this assistance readily available here in Lompoc. The proposed TBRA program would provide eligible Lompoc residents with rental security and utility deposit grants, as well as provide the city with a small portion of funds towards administration of the staff that oversee and run the program. Using current rental rates listed, security deposit assistance per household is estimated between an average of $1,000 to $2,000, which would stretch us somewhere between 70 and 100 households assisted. Rental and security deposit assistance is budgeted at $125,171. Activity delivery cost is at the maximum. State home has a more stringent activity delivery cost cap, so that $6,259 is the maximum we could use towards that. I wanted to provide this slide because I don't think people realize what low income is. This is not your lowest income people. Home funds can be utilized to provide direct financial assistance to income qualified households whose incomes are at or below 60% of the area median income. When we administered the TBRA program between 14 and 16, we saw a lot of working families that just couldn't pay that enormous security deposit to get into the unit. So, I mean, 4-person household earning $54,000 a year is not our extremely low income, but they still need the help. So tonight, staff recommends City Council adopt resolution number 613817, approving a state home program income tenant-based rental assistance program and supplemental appropriations for the TBRA program, and authorize the city manager to execute documents associated with the use of that state home program income for the TBRA program, or provide alternate direction. And I thank you, and if there's anything kind of questions you have, let me know.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Thank you, Christy. This is not touching any part of our Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
You're correct. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund, those funds are being used for the Homebuyer Assistance Program. And really the only other thing that could come in to touch those funds is if we had affordable housing developer come in with a proposed project that passes staff's desk and makes it to you guys for approval.
Okay, so then we're not taking anything away from the first-time homebuyer assistance then?
No, this is state home money that we had in 1992, had a program. We were receiving repayment. I think the only other thing that was funded from the state home was I want to say it was Recovery Way home acquisition with Good Samaritan Shelter years ago. We could use it for something like that again, but it's $131,000.
Right.
It's really not enough, but that's the type of projects. Home is very, very strict on what we can do with the funds.
Same as like you said before in the 14-16 cycle. You just used the word, and I'm curious about it. You said supplemental appropriations.
That's a Brad question.
It's okay.
What are supplemental appropriations?
With the passage of the budget on the September 5th, the budget for the program where these funds are in, it doesn't have appropriations to do this work. What the supplemental appropriation does is it moves the money from reserves into the program where it can be spent on this program. Supplemental means it's after the budget process was adopted.
So this is all going to come out of the home money then?
It stays within that program, that fund. Right now it's just housed in the fund balance of the account. We need to move it from fund balance into a appropriate line item so we can be charged.
Restricted use money.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Councilmember Vega.
Hey, Christie, it automatically gets phased out with the depletion of 131,000. Is that correct?
Yes, so your options, I mean, you should know what you can do. If you don't allocate it to the TBRA program, our options are to try and sit on it until an affordable housing development comes in that wants that 131,000. And when I say try to sit on it, because the state is aware of these funds, they can choose to say, hey, it's been since 1992, you don't have an active program, give us our money back. We're going to give it to someone who's going to use it. So that was the reason for me bringing it to you, not only because of the demand I see at the counter since we expended all of the other funding we used, but also because I'd rather see us use the money than lose it.
Okay, thank you. So we're basically just designating the 131 slash amount of dollars toward this program. Is that correct?
Correct. Any other questions? Councilmember Mosby.
It's eligible for Lompoc residents, but what is the qualifier for a Lompoc resident? Can they just show up tomorrow and be a Lompoc resident, or?
Well, no, they fill out an application and it should have a Lompoc address. Mind you, we're funding people in the last round. I don't remember exactly the number, but a lot of those were homeless people. They live at Bridge House. I don't know if we consider them Lompoc residents, but we got them housed.
Right, and I remember some people came in from Bakersfield and that far away to qualify, so there's...
Not for our TBRA program. We didn't have any out-of-staters for TBRA.
Well, that would have been out of area. That
Out of area, we didn't have
They
any.
just had to be, I'm just getting your qualification. If they're here a day or two, they would qualify then.
Yep, sleep on 8th Street and come in, they're homeless.
That's good. I just wanted to see what the qualifier was.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you. Open this up for public comment.
Hello, good evening. My name is Thomas Munoz. Actually, not why I came here and was quite impressed with this presentation, actually. I'm actually also the vice president of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul here in Lompoc, and we assist many residents with utility bills, rental assistance, first month's rent, security deposit, and utility bills as well. And I know it's work that we do along with different nonprofit organizations, and then working with city utilities as well. And I think this program absolutely is something that is absolutely amazing to be able to have that adopted into Lompoc with the amount of residents that are currently in Lompoc and that we deal with personally within the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, and I know that our counterparts within the other nonprofit organizations deal with as well. So I truly, fully would support this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. What's your desire? Councilman?
I have one more question there,
Sure,
sir,
go ahead.
if I could. Okay, Christy, I know there are two different elements and two different funds. CDBG funds cannot be merged with this program. Is that correct? Or can it be funded with this program at all?
So CDBG funds are 20, as you might recall, but I always like to remind you guys, CDBG can be used in different increments. You have a 20% of our whole grant that can be used for program administration. Then you have, and those are caps, and then you have the 15% that can be used for public service activities. That's our human services grants. The balance of that can be used for capital projects. The way the state home program is not the same as the federal home program. The state home program does state that if we are working on TBRA, we could be administratively funded through the CDBG. So, you know, my time spent on TBRA, since it's only $6,000, could be augmented by that CDBG 20%. As far as that program funding, though, CDBG does not fund TBRA. It's not an eligible activity.
But the fees that you charge through TBA could be funded or paid for through CDBG, correct?
The staff time.
Staff time. So we could actually make the money available go a lot farther if we funded staff time through that entity, since we do have money there?
It's all set out already with the existing
I know it's set out, but I
staffing,
mean, we're looking to help as many people one way or another. So.
Correct. So the bottom line is, and I don't want to dissuade you from doing anything like that, but the program, the way the state home program works is they won't give us any new money until we expend all our program income.
I got
So my goal is that by next funding cycle, the next fall state home program, when it opens up, is we will have expended these funds, we will have been successful in doing it, no findings, no issues, and they'll say, oh yeah, we love Lompoc, let's give them some state home money and let's keep their TBRA program going.
But up to now, it's taken since 1992 to gather $131,000, correct?
That program, well, we did get more than $131,000, but like I said, at that time, we didn't have a TBRA program. All we had was LHCDC, Good Samaritan, wanting to do affordable housing. So that's where that money went. So what we have right now is $131,000.
Thank you. I guess, we looking for a motion yet or
Yes,
not?
yep.
Okay, I'd like a motion here to go ahead and adopt and move forward with a block grant for this TBA loan program, or whatever you want to call
Okay,
it.
so you're moving staff recommendation.
Staff recommendation is what I'd like to propose.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Okay, we'll move on to item number 10, which is adoption, you stay right there, Christy.
I will.
Adoption of resolution number 6139, parentheses 17, community block grants. Okay.
Me in the dark. Honorable Mayor, council members, staff, and public, again, Christy Alarcon still here, Community Development Program Manager for the City of Lompoc. It's getting late. Sorry. I'm presenting the Commercial Facade Improvement Rebate and Loan Program tonight for approval. The city receives Community Development Block Grant funding, commonly referred to as CDBG, and we get that funding annually from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, commonly referred to as HUD. The city manages a portfolio of loans in the CDBG program income fund. Revenue from CDBG funded loans through payoffs or payments are deposited into this fund for reallocation to CDBG eligible activities. The city has used CDBG funds to provide economic development loans to businesses to create and or retain jobs for low-income persons in the city. Another CDBG eligible tool for economic development is a facade improvement program. In the past, the city has funded a facade improvement loan program with tax increment revenue received by the Lompoc Redevelopment Agency. The city has not operated that program since 2011 due to the loss of that funding stream. And I just want to add in here, it was a very different program from what I'm presenting to you tonight. At the May 16th City Council meeting, the CDBG programs were approved along with the proposed budgets for the 17-18 program, and funding for the program was adopted as part of the annual action plan approval. However, the program implementation was not set at that time, but that is what's being proposed here tonight. The proposed program has two components, the rebate component and the loan component. The program rebate is a 50% cash rebate up to a maximum of $5,000. Those funds are not required to be repaid. The program loan can be used in conjunction with or separately from the rebate program, consisting of a zero-interest unsecured loan up to $15,000. Funds can be used to make improvements to commercial properties, to reduce out-of-pocket expense to owners, and to encourage such improvements to be completed that would improve, upgrade, and or enhance the physical appearance of their storefront. Another reason we had this program ready a while back ago to bring, but we decided to hold off to roll this out to the community until after the signage ordinance was adopted. We felt that this would be a nice financial assistance to be available to businesses that may have non-conforming signage and needed a little financial assistance to get those up to where they need to be. So tonight, staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 613917, implementing a Community Development Block Grant Commercial Facade Improvement Rebate and Loan Program. As always, any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? Councilmember Vega.
I think it's a great need in this community as far as upgrading and do some facial lift on some of these buildings and stuff, and that's exactly what it can be used for. Is that correct?
You're right.
Is it also, can it be used for beautification at some point?
It is. So facade improvement includes landscaping, architectural details, awnings, windows, signage, security lighting features, new paint, parking lot improvements. The list goes on. Whatever applicant would come in with basically a list of proposed improvements, and then we review them in order to make sure they're CDBG eligible. The other component of that grant that's really nice is it also, the whole program covers the city fees associated with it and the architectural design. You know, if they want to do something a little bit more involved and there's some design elements, it also covers that.
It covers also permit issues or fees like that?
Permit, planning.
And this is also money, because you said it was an action item that was never implemented. This money's been on hold, or is it still available for someone to grab it if we don't assign it?
No, so this is part of our annual CDBG action plan. And so, as you're all aware, our priorities in our action plan with regards to the capital projects, that was set 2 years ago when we did our 5-year consolidated plan. At that time, we did 3 public workshops with the community, and the highest needs were jobs, economic development, and public facility improvements, parks, and so that's where we have pushed our money out to. So this was just one more tool that would go along with our economic development loan program to really show kind of a fully faceted options out there for the community.
Is this also something that we can use as a tool with our Economic Development Committee, and can they use this as a...
They're all really
help
excited.
Themselves? Is that right? Okay,
Yes.
So we're behind the scenes. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Mosby.
Where does the money come from to oversee and administer?
So the administration of a CDBG program is just part of that 20% as far as the facade program. So that's where it's going to pop out of.
So you take 10,000 of the 50,000 to administer?
No, 50,000
the other.
50,000 is 100% going to this program.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll open this up for public comment. Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to council. What's your desire?
Gosh, I did what Janelle does. Gosh, sorry. I'd like to make the motion that we move forward with that program and allow them to implement this.
Okay.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Okay. Let's see, City Clerk, any written communications?
Nothing more than you've already received.
Okay. Oral communication. This is your opportunity to speak to us for up to 2 minutes on any item that can come before this council. And seeing no one rise, we're going to close oral communication, bring it back to council requests, comments. Mr. Starbuck.
Could I be first?
You may be first. This is council requests, comments, and meeting reports. We'll start with Councilmember Starbuck.
Thank you. The last meeting we had, I asked Councilmember Vega if he would bring back a discussion on this meeting. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this because I think there was a lot of overreaction and reactions, and we're seeing the repercussion from that right now. Somebody had once told me that if we're all thinking the same, somebody isn't thinking, and that was pretty obvious. There was a lot of thinking happening here. What I would like to propose to the council, and please listen, is I would love for us to come to a consensus to have a council discussion in closed session on 3 October with an employee performance discussion and council communication. And I would like probably at least an hour, hour and a half of closed session for us.
Councilmember Starbuck, just for my clarification, how is this different than what we've already done twice?
This is how I'd like it listed on the agenda. It's not disciplinary, it's not termination, but I think that I'll throw in there, since the last meeting till now, I've gone in and I've seen Mr. Weimiller. I'm sure that everybody's gone in and seen Mr. Weimiller. Mr. Weimiller's heard from 5 people. I think as a group, it would be good for us to sit down and talk to Mr. Weimiller. I also feel that it might be good to discuss some of our things out of public in closed session.
Councilmember Vega.
Along with this, I've also taken the leeway to speak to Mr. Weimiller. I think that a lot of these issues that we've had here are pretty contentious. You know, we had a budget that came up with, I'm sure it wasn't easy for staff either to come up with the verbiage that had to come up and had to be said about budgeting, or whether it was bankruptcy, or whether we needed $70 million unfunded liability. A lot of hard questions. I think a lot of people that think that the council here was just over here to belittle someone, I think was wrong. I think maybe some of the direction got a little bit heated, but I think in the long run, I think it were difficult subjects to move on. Many of the people that are out there judging us and listening to us, yes, your expectations are absolutely correct. We should be professional. We should be decent. We should be able to at least talk things out. One of my issues is all these previous council members that come up here and they're saying, hey, we would do things different. I applaud you, man. Run again. Come over here and do it again. Show us if you're going to do this. But until you're in our shoes, it's very difficult to come up here and do this job and do the amount of homework that was necessary to even come up with the questions that were, you know, it's very hard to change the flow of the river when you come up with these hard questions. I don't think anyone here took that lightly. I think it was very difficult. I have to applaud anybody that went in there and went the extra mile for doing that. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to at least have Mr. Weimiller, I give him this opportunity. You know, I've had this conversation with him, and I think we're coming to a point where we all agree that we need to go this direction to be more professional in certain manners, but it was very difficult, as he has admitted to me. Sometimes we say things we don't mean or take things out of context. So if Mr. Weimiller wouldn't mind, you know, addressing part of what we do here as a policy-making body and maybe an oversight committee, you know, we do have that authority on a given night, such as on council night. That's part of our job. You know, Mr. Weimiller is a city employee, and we're trying to do the best job for the people that elected us, you know. A lot of these people think that if we came in here and agreed with staff all the time, what do you need us for if we're not going to question some of these things? You know, it's really difficult for you guys to come out here and say, hey, we're elected for the people. Well, why don't you say yes to everything they say? We might as well just put a bunch of dummies up here. I'm not calling us dummies either, okay? So, but what I'm saying is we're trying to ask the hard questions so that we can get some different answers and find some different solutions. I think that what I would like to do is, again, ask Mr. Weimiller if he would like to make a statement.
Okay, Mr. Weimiller, is this relating to?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good.
It's all together on this.
Together. Okay,
yes.
Go ahead. Okay.
My timing may be a little bit off, but I think the subject is still the same.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you're still in tune with Mr. Starbucks.
Sorry, I was wondering if that was a yes or no.
Well, you know, I just think it's appropriate, okay, to allow both sides to speak.
Sure, just to hopefully take away any doubt in anybody's mind about what the order of authority is within the city. Clearly, the city council and at any time the vote of the majority of the city council is what sets policy and guides governance and provides ultimate administration for the city. And then you in turn implement your policies through your city manager. So if there was any doubt about whether I understood who has the ultimate authority, that definitely, not only just as a matter of common knowledge and my personal knowledge, that lies with the majority of council, with the city council and how the city council acts and votes as majority. And in fact, that's one of the provisions within my own contract as well. Reading verbatim, the city council sets the policy for governance and administration of the city, and it implements its policies through the city manager.
Thank you. Now you can carry on. Appreciate that. Thank you, sir, for your comments.
Okay, so getting back to Councilmember Starbuck's request that you're making this a council request that we bring it back for a closed session discussion with the city manager.
And ourselves.
And ourselves, okay. Again, I have the same question. We've already done 2 reviews in the past 6 months. We've had discussion.
I did not use the word review. Okay. I wanted open discussion is all I'm looking for here.
And what I'm saying is I'll eliminate the word review. During these sessions, we have had open discussions. We've asked Mr. Weinmiller questions. He's answered questions. We've filled out forms. For the life of me, I don't know what this is going to do other than have another round to possibly satisfy or 1 or 2 individuals. I mean, I just don't understand this. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results.
This isn't the same thing. I will just say that I've talked to Mr. Weinmiller about a couple of ideas and thoughts, and I didn't want to bring them out in the public. Mr. Weinmiller is aware of what my thoughts are, and it's not making the same mistake. I mean, it's a yes or no.
Okay, so Councilmember Osborne.
So I appreciate both of you moving this forward in a different manner. And out of respect for that, what I would like to propose us calling this is an internal workshop. Instead of bringing in an outside entity to help us through our communication issues, I'm seeing this as an opportunity for us to go home and do our homework, read through the council handbook each, be prepared to have questions for our legal counsel about our boundaries and expectations, have a frank discussion with our city manager about where we have overstepped and how we can communicate better. As long as this is part of us evaluating ourselves and how we communicate with each other as well as our city manager, I can support this.
Okay, you've got one. Do we have a third?
I love the last proposal and the way you arranged it. I think that as long as the city attorney is okay with this, that he could bring all appropriate material so that we can discuss it and just have a question-answer period also, so we can benefit from the knowledge.
I think the Brown Act allows that under the category of personnel evaluation. So we're still going to have the title of the agenda item be performance evaluation, and it will list city manager. So as long as you understand that, but that will give you the opening that you want to have that evaluation both ways.
I'm okay with that if we have to label it that, as long as the criteria has been noted, as Councilwoman Osborne has laid out.
Okay, so you have, that's council request. You've got your 3 votes, so you clear? Everyone clear? Now, did you have a certain date?
Well, I was thinking the sooner the better. I don't know what's on a closed session for the 3rd, but I would really like a lot of time on it. Is the 3rd an available time?
There are 2 other items, but I think we can do it.
Okay. Anything else?
Just a quick question. This is probably go to the city clerk. On the proposed future council agendas I was just looking at, we had at one time had a council consensus for doing a review of the general plan. I think Councilmember Vega had brought that up, and did we get the consensus to go ahead and look at that?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think so, but it didn't come on this. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Mosby.
Yeah, a couple documents that maybe the rest of the council members and mayor could go try to get the clerk or get it offline, and that's the City of Lompoc Personnel Ordinance and Rules Book. It's Ordinance 848, and maybe it's updated on, but this is what prints off the line. But there's a lot of information in there that tells borders and boundaries and such in there. So probably be a good idea to read up on that document. Another one I think that would be a level of importance to review because it came up at the last budget cycle, and that was it was an agenda item and a staff report February 18th, 2014, and this was when the crossing guards was shifted over from full responsibility under the city and Lompoc PD, and we still are funding it, and we shifted it over to the school district to oversee. But the MOU at that time had an expiration date. So just a suggestion that you guys maybe pull those documents, take a look at them, and see if you want to make some action on those. Thank you.
Councilmember Vega.
I attended the League of Cities this last week. The city did pay for the hotel and mileage, and it was very interesting. So any of you who think that we're not going out there and trying to get more training and put some more upstairs here to help, a lot of interesting subjects. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for their input out there. I think it is important, you know, whether it's positive or negative, that we all check ourselves, come back to square one and take the high road. I don't want you guys to be out there and be embarrassed with your elected officials up here. At the same token, you know, there's a method to our madness on some of these hard questions. It's easier to say yes than ask the hard questions. And I prefer to ask the hard questions so you guys think that or you guys know that we're actually up here trying to make our city better in certain ways. You know, there has to be a whole, many ways to do it correctly, so why not listen to a couple of other ideas? Thank you very much.
Councilmember Osborne.
I also attended the League of California Cities conference last week, and the city covered the cost to attend this. Thank you.
Okay, I attended numerous meetings throughout the past 2 weeks, but I just want to make note of two. On September 12th, I attended a first responders luncheon that St. Mary's Episcopal Church puts on annually, and they do a great luncheon, and they invite police, fire, both city and county, the AMRs, tow truck drivers, anyone that is any way involved in first responding. It was a great luncheon. They had a record turnout. There was well over 100 people, most of them first responders, police, fire, that attended it. It's a great event that St. Mary's puts on every year. The other thing I just want to make note of is on the 13th, I attended over here at our Dewey Center an Economic Development Educational Summit. And it was a meeting that was put together by the EDC, but it really was focused on education. They had a lot of educators there, and they did a lot of concentration on the education in our community. It was a really good time. So,
Bob?
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to extend a thanks and to the mayor for the day. You know, we shook hands once, and his wife is out there, and he stayed for the whole meeting, and I have to applaud someone that stays for the whole meeting. So if you wouldn't mind, thank you so much.
You know, I just want to make note that I stayed for the whole meeting, too. Okay, if there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned to our regular city council meeting on October 3rd, right here in City Council at 6:30 p.m. Thank you and good night.